forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
We can all get along, but there's no stopping. Ay, everybody's wrong, that's a real problem. Ay, they don't want to hear it, but they still talking. Ay, soon enough, we running out of options. Ay, this ain't gonna end till it's in the coffin. Ay, we ain't gonna be friends till we try to squash it. Ay, I don't know how we can make amends or we drop it. Snowflakes melt when it's hot, kid.
Y'all are so fake. Oh no, the forecast said that there'd be snowflakes. Whoa, you can make us see it your way. No way, gasoline and propane, more flames. Oh no, no more snowflakes.
Hey guys, this is Amaria Sweet with HeartMind Expressions and the Fab Four. Tonight we're gonna have everybody. We've got Alex Spielman, Sue McClure, and Dr. Alex Bloom will be joining us. So we've got some
Friday, right?
heck yeah. Lots of things going on. Alex, did you want to start? You had some stuff that you were wanting to rock and roll
Do we
with?
want to give our sponsors a little hug first?
Yeah, we can totally do that. Great reminder. Thanks, Sue. Of course, thank you so much, Soma Fusion and Dr. Katie Kamara. She's our amazing producer, and she works so diligently to help us have an amazing show. And then iEvolveTV, C4OC Radio Network, and Rev Radio Las Vegas. Some awesome shout outs there, as well as the Savvy Clothing Footwear line. It's footwear for women of all ages and sizes. So if you go to savvy.com/Soma Fusion, savvi.com/Soma Fusion, check out the amazing footwear there. All right, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Alex Spielman, Mr. Wonderful. Would you like to tell us what's going on in your beautiful state? We heard it's been a lot of things going on, a lot of sleepless nights too.
When did I become a member of the Shark Tank?
The Shark Tank.
Do you feel like you're a merman in the middle of a Shark Tank? I'm just wondering.
No. You know, you've heard the show Shark Tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, one of the investors over there, they nickname him Mr. Wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's oh yeah.
Well, I can come up with a whole bunch of other names for you too, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say them. So I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Watch that. Watch your tongue there, young lady. We want to make sure that it's safe for the kiddies.
There you go. There you go.
We're doing this for the children, after all, at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot of sleepless nights. I haven't had a very energetic sleep in the last few days or weeks because of the fun stuff that's happening over here. As most people are well aware, we had our state elections on Tuesday, right? And I know most of the mainstream news was talking about, Virginia and McAuliffe and Youngkin. Virginia flipped Republican, and no one focused on New Jersey. Huh.
Interesting.
Why were they not focusing on that? The Murphy, our current governor, he was going to win. He was up by 6 points in the polls, and his opponents started beating him in the polls.
Love it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not so popular when he killed 8,000 people and destroyed 1/3 of small businesses and
it doesn't help your case.
I don't think, and then all of a sudden this map started changing, and where have we seen this before?
Yeah.
And where has Mr. T been these last few months? Oh, that's right, New Jersey. He's been at Bedminster at the Trump golf club up there, and everything. All of a sudden now we have a situation where it's the emperor in his new clothes.
We call that first class humiliation.
We call that a humiliation ritual, and I can't. And I'm not one to revel in those things, but in this case, it's totally deserved.
Yeah.
I do not. For all those family members who have lost a loved one, and we're not even allowed to put them to rest because of the COVID restrictions. Just saying. I'll finish that.
Well, karma is going to come back.
I think a lot of these cases that are going out, where a lot of us are suing.
Yeah.
And so,
well, lawsuits. Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like lawyers in almost every state in the United States is going to basically be busy with a long field day. I mean, there's going to be lawsuits for being slandered by the deep state. There's going to be lawsuits that has to do with the ouchie. There's going to be lawsuits of how you were treated in the hospitals altogether. There's just all sorts of lawsuits, job losses, restrictions, violations of all kinds. I mean, that's not going to happen. It's actually going to be a very good business in the future. Law firms are going to get it. Right. The law firms are getting paid up their heinies.
Yes, but don't forget, it was law firms that got us into this position in the first place.
True.
If they were doing their job,
because they were,
if they were doing their job, there would not be all these deaths, because there would be someone there to prosecute people for their malpractice of all shapes and sizes. It's not. This is something that we need to understand, that we cannot let this happen ever again, ever. I'm not talking 70 years where we had to deal with this before. I'm talking about never seeing this on the face of the earth ever again. And if we do see this, we snuff it out when the first ash hits the ground.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've already had similar stuff like this happen before during a particular war. So
and we even had it before that.
And I mean, but like I said, corruption is what made it grow. It's kind of like nursing mold. If you don't snub that out, it's going to keep growing. Finally, your whole loaf of bread looks like, well, not edible anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyways, going back to what I was going back to what I was saying before. So I don't know if you guys have watched the news, and they're like, "Oh, Murphy won re-election, yay!" Except he hasn't. They're still counting. I can verify that myself. I am a county committeeman within my county. Awesome. in New Jersey. I have talked to a commissioner of the Board of Elections in the county. I can assure you that is not happening yet. No, nothing. No clerk has called anything. No election commissioner has called anything. It is nothing done yet. It's just the news being fake news.
Are they doing some sort of auditing along with it too, or
you can't do one yet?
Okay.
You have to wait till.
So the first level is to check the counting first, right?
You can't
make
even
sure
do that yet.
The first level counting. So they have to do the first counting, which is they have to count all together, and then they do the first audit if they need to, which is recounting them.
Not yet. No.
Okay.
No. That's like step 5 at this point.
Okay.
Our first step is the first thing that we need to do is make sure we have compliance officers at every board of elections while they're doing this counting right now.
Yeah. Right.
There's no need to do all that stuff if we can snuff this stuff out as it's happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to do first. So that's why Jack Citarelli, who is the Republican for governor over here, has the largest, most well-funded election integrity team in the state of New Jersey in electoral history over here. Not only that, but we also have lawyers that have come from the DC centric RNC. So we have lawyers up the wazoo over here just ripping things to shreds because it is very commonly known that New Jersey is by far one of the most corrupt states in the union. And some people argue California, some people argue New York. New Jersey, I think, is far worse because it's well organized and it's well accepted within the culture. You know, I mean, we talk about this stuff over here so often. I mean, have you guys ever heard of The Sopranos?
Yeah.
That's New Jersey, and the fact that they have a prequel that is being played by the person who played Tony Soprano. His son's playing Tony Soprano now in the prequel. But anyways, okay, so what needs to be done, right? This is what needs to be done here. And the reason why New Jersey is the one to do it is because of all the horrible things that are here, right? Like I said, the nursing homes, the amount of destruction that was happened over here. This is the perfect state to highlight the deep state. This is one of the perfect states that you can do that. You can deal with all this corruption. Every one of those movies that a certain person was talking about, if you will, a certain number with that's resembled a certain letter was talking about three movies, right? New Jersey is one of those perfect places where you can do all of those three things at the same time. But okay, so what you need to do. First, the counting has to finish, right? We still have VBMs, vote by mail, and provisionals. Those are not going to be finished until at earliest next week. And then that's what's going to happen is that you're going to have a game that's going to look very much like an old Looney Tunes cartoons, where all the lawyers start playing Pile on the Rabbit. They start they just start jumping on everything, and then we can start. Then we can start doing audits and recounts and really doing things because then we know what's going on. But
hopefully we won't need to go that far. I'm hoping that they'll, but a lot of times they don't want things to be simple. They're going to fight to the nail and teeth.
Well, see, if you've ever watched any of those horror films when they're ripping like the apparition or whatever evil demonic spirits on them, and there's usually like this almost like a pulling sensation between that person ripping them apart. If you've ever, you know what I'm talking about, where they're just ripping it apart from the person, like an exorcism.
Yeah.
That's going to happen here. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be fast, and it's not going to be painless.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a system that has been corrupt here for at least 70 years.
Well, it will expose all the stuff that happened in the past as well, because if that's happening, then, you know,
exactly.
Then,
once you finish this up, you're going to see a very quick succession of other places because this is one of those strongholds. Right?
Yeah.
Just imagine this is almost like a siege, if you will. You have sides, both sides ready to go, ready to really have this gone for the long haul. So be calm, collected. It's all happening this way for a reason.
Yeah, well, it's allowing the people to see this because
exactly
like we said, we can't tell people things. We have to show them.
Right. No one's conceded. Both sides want to count every single vote. Both of them said that within 24 hours. That just tells you something right there, that something is up.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Project Veritas was also over here. And now they're having their own journalists having their doors being kicked in by the FBI and the DOJ. So you know there's something up when that happens.
Yeah, there's I think that I mean, I can't confirm anything with it at the moment, but from what I heard, what's her name? Ashley Biden, I believe.
Actually,
Uh,
Biden. She's the
yeah,
niece
the niece.
of the.
Yeah,
She's
she had a diary that talked about the abuse that went on, especially what Joe did. So that's gonna
Yep.
come tumbling around him real quick.
Which is funny because New Jersey borders Delaware on the south in the southwest. Huh. Yeah, you can get if you from me, which I'm in the center of the state. You can get I can get to Dover within, or actually no, Wilmington. Let's do Wilmington because he's from Wilmington. I can get there within 2 hours.
Nice.
So, and then DC is only about another hour and a half. So, all things in good time. There is a season and time before everything. I'm not worried. I'm just tired.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
stressed.
where a lot of us are at this point. We're just kind of
It's just-
tired.
Yeah, it's
But
all roller coastery,
it's
right?
amazing that calm that you're talking about. I mean, I felt
It's-
really calm through this, even though, I'm facing losing my job because I refused to get poked. And I've put in
Yep.
my Title VII. I've put in everything legally that I should do for certain codes and civil rights that I have for,
Yeah.
to take care of my own health and everything, how I feel is safe for myself. And so, but I'm not worried. I feel really
No.
comfortable. I've prepared myself very well so that at least I knew I might lose my job.
I'm
Um,
and I'm not too concerned. I knew that I was personally. I know I was going to get into this situation at some time,
right,
and the
right.
reason why I even became a committeeman was for the specific purpose right now.
I'm so
because-
excited that you did that.
Yeah.
Because everybody now is panicking because of what's
Yeah.
going on, right? We all know that there was going to be this panic.
Right.
But what's happening over here? And all of us who are kind of in the know what's going on are trying to calm down, the general public and friends and neighbors and loved ones. It's just a time where this is where we have to invoke that love and that compassion right there.
Exactly.
Everything is fine. It sounds scary. It's not that scary. We just need to go through this and
We
work.
know.
We
Yeah,
just
we
go through the
know
motions.
how the things are going to play out. Things have to play out this way. So speaking of panic, and then us, the rest of us, kind of know what's going on and being calm. We want to welcome Dr. Alex Bloom, the other Alex.
Hey, Dr.
Welcome,
Bloom.
welcome, welcome.
Hi, Doc.
So good to see
So
you again.
good.
It's been a
Yeah.
while.
See you. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Alex, so what do you think about how panicking works? Just, the psychological side of it, that a lot of times panic usually just happens because of the lack of knowledge, right? So if people know that they're going to be put in a dangerous situation, if they knew crystal ball wise in the future, they're going to come out all right. People are just lay back and going, yeah, we know the plane's going down, but they're going to get a hold of the steering wheel. They're going to get a hold of everything and the throttle and all that, and they'll be fine. So don't worry. But since we don't know, we all freak out and stuff like that. So when it comes to situations, that has to do with politics or situation has to do with everyday life, panic has to do with the unknown. What is your take on that?
Well, I think panic is something that is been used by this cabal, deep state, whatever words we want to put on it, for a long time, for thousands of years, really. It's the divide and conquer. It's the fear and anger. It's the low vibration. It's there's
You're picking up.
Yeah. Alex, you've got a little bit of an
internet
glitch
you literally broke up completely. We didn't really get that.
Let me see if I go into the other room here, if that will help.
We're
So bear
getting
with me
about a
so I can be
25% tour of his
kosher.
house there.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot.
All right, how's that? Is that better?
Oh, you
Sounds
got a
better.
great background of your desk. All right, let's
Yeah.
go.
Sounds a lot better.
Looks awesome.
So there's multiple perspectives or angles that are going on here in terms of how long and how extensive this has been transpiring. So when we talk about panic kind of now with everything that's happening, but we have to go back to like its origins. So this goes back thousands of years, if not more. So let's start from like a spiritual energetic point of view. Obviously, you know, with Loosh and kind of what's going on with multidimensional beings in terms of why they want to put us in a low vibration state, there's that's their food. From an energetic point of view, beyond that, it limits our creative potential when we are in low vibration. Low vibration means really heavy, dense, negative emotion, very 3D. So lots of anger, lots of fear, lots of sadness and hopelessness and despair. That is the lowest vibration we can be in as a human being. So you have that going on. Then you have kind of this, when you conceptualize the powers that be and the structure of how all of it flows, it's in a pyramidal shape. So you have up at the very tip top, the capstone is, 13 bloodline families, right? And kind of, it can go even much more beyond that, but we'll just keep it simple in that sense. And then they have their committees, their think tanks, their, roundtable discussions that kind of endorse the social programming and engineering in order to have all of this play itself out. And there's an intention behind it. There's an agenda behind it. You have the strong arm of the media, where 90% of our media is owned by 5 corporations. And so there's this illusion of choice that if I listen to something from Wall Street Journal versus NPR versus Washington Post or New York Times or whatever, or Fox versus CNN, that I'm getting, different information. Well, we have no further than to look at like what's happened these past 4 years with like Russiagate, right? And kind of what went on there of like, it was circular reporting that the government was using the media as its foundational underpinnings of why they should pursue things, but the media didn't have any basis to go off of. So it's all smokescreen and mirrors. And so, where I'm going with this is that now that like Trump is no longer the scapegoat, that now we have a new one with COVID. And so with that, now it's going to be the poke, right? And soon after that, like I was telling my family there, I said, spoiler alert, don't be surprised if now we start hearing about the next item on the agenda, which is going to be beyond the ouchie and Fauci's ouchie. How's that for a meme?
Yeah.
There you go.
But the next one beyond that is now going to be green, this green movement, right? With carbon emissions and the carbon tax and everything that's been there. But now it's going to be coming more and more into the forefront. So panic, fear, anger, all of those sorts of things back to the pyramidal structure that they know if they can keep us dumb in terms of awareness raising and exposure to intelligence and information, if they can keep us divided amongst one another, hence all these movements that are going on with critical race theory and BLM and maskers versus anti-maskers and all of that sort of stuff, that then it creates division among the lower bases of this pyramid, so that there's nothing more than infighting, and we're not banding together to look up on the pyramidal chain. We're looking horizontally, and that's how they operate. So the biggest thing that we can do is what we are doing, what's happening in mass. And we see this more and more and more. This is the Great Awakening, right? That like, doesn't matter if you're in Belarus or France or Australia or the US, Canada, I mean, all over the world, people are like, you know what, enough's enough. You know what, we've been locked down for going on 2 years here, and COVID is ending. COVID is, people are getting healed and like going back to work and wanting all of this to end. I had a friend I spoke to earlier today, and he works for a very big name corporation, and he does all of the
Me.
statistical analyses for hospitals in this big conglomeration. And he said, when you look at the stats in terms of COVID by the numbers, he goes, it's all a scam. And that was his word, scam. So that's a big deal for someone who's a researcher. And he's like, obviously I can't say anything and I wouldn't make this public, but that's what's going on. So I'm not going to reveal any more of his details beyond that. But the point remains that what we're dealing with here is, what we know, but what a lot of the masses don't yet know, because they're hearing information from an echo chamber. And so this is where they are in their own version of panic and fear. And that's expressing itself as anger and confusion of, I met up with some friends this past week, and one of them lost a good friend. And so he was very naturally angry and didn't understand why everybody just doesn't get the jab. And he's just like, I don't get it. Like, let's just do this so we can be done with this and move on. Like, it's so selfish. And I get where he's coming from. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand from his point of view that he just had one of his best friends pass away. And if the narrative is because we don't have enough people getting the poke, then it makes sense in terms of why there would be a push for that. And then if there isn't awareness, and this is what I say as a discussion point to those that are at least willing to listen,
right,
is, wait a minute, but if we look at the news, if we forget conspiracy theories, forget mainstream media and kind of its lack of exposure to telling truth, like, why can't we just simply have a discussion of both sides? Why do you look and see, like, I even shared this with clients, and at first, like, I had a client recently and she got mad at me, and then afterwards she's like, you know what, I really thought about it after the session and it really kind of woke me up. And she was watching 4.5 hours of cable news every single day, to the point that she was living in fear and literally would not leave her house to go to her mailbox for over a year.
That's so sad.
And so when she stopped turning on the news, and like I said, I'm not saying to not get your news anymore, but just get it from print media, go online, because you could take the control back, right? You're looking at things now from the perspective of, well, wait a minute, I think I'm done with this article. I understand what the main gist is, and I can move on to the next subject, as opposed to being at the whim and mercy of some talking head with its groomed MK Ultra phrasing of how everything is oriented. Take your power back. You don't need to watch 4.5 hours to stay up to date with the news. And so now she left her house. She went to 2 concerts, and she's driving around everywhere, all within a very short amount of time. So my point with all of this is that they are stuck in fear because they're not getting both sides of the information. And obviously we know that that's one of the main pushes of going against all the censorship that's happening. But we're going to have more of this. So a big spoiler alert to everyone who's kind of watching this and seeing what's going on. And even we can get caught up in it too. There's going to be a hell of a lot more fear. There's going to be a hell of a lot more people getting angry. And that's all part of the waking up symptomology as we kind of arise and ascend. And so I was just listening to the first part of a Ben Shapiro podcast today. And you might have talked about this before I got on, but the Biden administration came forward and now made it official as of today about this enforcement with the 100 employee companies, and getting the ouchie or the weekly COVID testing. And soon the testing is going to stop and you're going to have to get it. And then they're going to extend beyond 100 employees, and they're going to say all companies are going to force to get that. So my natural question is, well, wait, what does all companies mean? What if you're a solo entrepreneur? Does that mean that because you technically own a company that you'll have to get it too, even if you live and work remotely? Like, where is this going to stop? And I understand from a larger perspective that this is being done in order to wake people up. It's like what 17 was saying earlier, like what Alex was saying is like, and Sue as well, like sometimes you can't tell the people, you have to show the people. And I know people in my personal life, just this past week alone, that are good friends, where they're like finally having to reconcile with this cognitive dissonance, but the Democrats are good, but the Republicans are bad, but Trump is out of office. but we have a savior in Biden. But look at gas prices and inflation and Afghanistan and the border and COVID and all, I mean, the list goes on, right?
Oops, I crapped my pants.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I watched that commercial today, by the way. I'm back on Facebook. I made an
Love
account
it.
last night, so I'm back on. So if we're not friends, then look me up. So, so with all of this, there's going to be more fear. And so again, what do we do about it? Number one, it's important for us not to stay in fear. I mean, right now, I'm hoping that things don't get much worse, but I know for myself, like there was a mandate for healthcare workers, which of course I fall into, in the state of Oregon, that said that you've got to get it or else you can't see clients. And my exception and how I got out of it is because I am 100% of the time remote. Well,
Nice.
that's great because, I'm not seeing clients. Now, if that changes, I'd like a logical science-based answer in terms of that. But, we don't know what the next phase of this Biden unfurlment will entail. And so it's obviously very concerning for all of us. So again, with a lot of words, what I'm trying to say here is fear, anger, getting mad, whether if it's mad at the system, mad at the man, mad at the sleepers getting mad at us, it's all still the same energy that we are putting out. We have to alchemize and move beyond that. And how we move beyond that is we have to ascend above that. And that doesn't mean we become elitists of like, well, I'm smart and you're not, I'm a truther and you're dumb. It's like, no, it's what Jesus said, forgive them for what they know not what they do. Like they're at a different stage of consciousness than where we are. If you're going to be at a higher stage of consciousness, then there's going to be a higher expectation upon you in terms of how you interact back with these people. And that's hard. That's hard for us because our egos get involved and we're like, well, no, I want to be a dick to them because they were a dick to me,
Yeah.
And so what we have to do is this is where our own spiritual work comes in. No one can do this for us, but we have to not fight fear and anger with that same energy.
Right.
Otherwise, it just makes it blossom even more so. It magnifies it. And that's not what we want to do. You don't fight fire with fire.
Right.
You have to have a different quality, a different element to use, right? So for us, the calling is to kind of respond back, which means response means how I summarize it with clients is I say, basically what we're doing in a nutshell in this therapy experience is we're moving away from unconscious reacting, which is we would say kind of living in the matrix, being in 3D, whatever phrasing you want to put there. We're moving away from unconscious or subconscious reacting, where we're just like this all day long, which is the social programming, what they put us in with, the need to be in the matrix and basically debt slaves and all of that, to move to conscious responding. And that's our work. That's our bleeding edge for all of us. So how we do that, the specifics are going to look different for different people. But one basic, which goes back to Sue's original question of the panic and the fear, is that we have to bring a different quality to it. We have to model for them something different. If we're going to usher in New Earth and a 5D experience, then we have to embody that ourselves. And when we embody that, then we are resonating that out toward other people. And that right there is the secret. It's easier said than done. But if there's one big takeaway from what we can do based on all the chaos that's going on in the world nowadays, in my opinion, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we have to really go with is understanding.
Yeah.
Because we were there too. We were all asleep.
Exactly.
We've all been bamboozled. We've all been, and it's kind of very similar to a lot of the scams that are personal scams that are going on when we get these phone call scams, when we get these internet scams and things like that. And then we find out that it is a scam. And then we let other people know, hey, watch out for this type of call, watch out for this type of email, and watch out for these types of messages, and some people believe it and some people don't. But and there's kind of two kinds of spendings on that, in my opinion, from what I understand, from what I know. There's one that when you have a physical scam, like they call the African scam or whatever, and we get these phone calls or these emails or letters and messages, we end up giving them our money, as to put it. And and lots of it a lot of times, and people get bamboozled over that. But then there's the other kind, which is a spiritual scam, and we're handing over our power. So here we are, we're fighting a spiritual scam because a lot of people are handing over their power
Yeah.
to a source that promises all kinds of awesome things if we do that.
Right.
And a lot of people are learning that, well, they're still waiting, quote, quote, in the mail for this awesome thing that they were promised. It hasn't happened yet, both physically and spiritually. So people are waking up because of that. They're going, hey, what's the stuff you promised? It's flatten the curve. It's the mask. It's the ouchie. It's, everything. They kept increasing it. They kept moving the goalpost. And so now the ones who are quick to realize that it's a scam have woken up. The ones that are still not sure, they're still worried about their health. And yes, that's the biggest scam of all, is anything personal, which is spiritual and medical, are the easiest attack places in the world to us personally, because medical, we all want to live. We all want to be healthy and we all want to be alive. Nobody wants to be sick. And I'm pretty sure that most, other than hypochondriacs, most of the people do not want to spend their days in the hospital or in some sort of help home. So we know that that is the end consequence if we don't take care of ourselves. So it's easy to get people right there on a health card and stand there and say, well, it's for your health. It's for the community's health. It's for the public health. Well, of course, nobody wants to be responsible for killing a baby. Nobody wants to be responsible for killing grandma. But now we have to show the people and said, look, grandma will be fine. The baby will be fine. And
Right.
how do you do that? That's really hard to do, because it's not like we can show in a crystal ball. See, if you step outside the door today and hang out with your friends, look at tomorrow, you're still going to be alive. Look at 2 weeks from now, you're still going to be alive. We don't have that power. So then we have to get people to have faith and trust that they're going to be okay. And the one thing that they hid from all of us was something called the immune system.
Right.
That is actually the biggest secret that they have kept from the public, because of, as everybody has been, that is awake, that's talking now about the immune system. And unfortunately, the mainstream media and the news are talking you crazy. And I've even seen in the comments how they talk about, well, you need to have this ouchie. You need to do all of these things because all of these things was from polio. All of these things were from the flu. All of these things are for all these other things that happened in our history and in our lives. And you take the ouchie for these things. Why not this?
Well,
And
I
so there's, yeah.
well, also got to reconcile with the fact that they have changed the definition for vaccine twice within the last 10 years. Because as all of us probably were growing up, is that the original definition had to do with it being a weakened form, which then your body could absorb, and you get an immune response from that. And then they changed it out. Now it's just they changed it from that to it's what helps provoke immunity. They disregarded the dead or weakened state of things. And then they just recently changed it, I think like a month ago. Now the new definition talks about it is required for immunity.
Wow.
Wow.
Which is not true.
Wow.
Right. Well, and it's
Actually,
interesting. There's
yeah.
videos and videos that Dr. John Bergman that's actually made on the immunity, the immune system, and as well as the fraud on VAXX, getting poked on any of them, because like where it used to be, penicillin was good for bacterial infections, different things like that. And there were specific shots that were pretty good for things. But now what's going on is during the trial periods, they're getting active placebos, or they're changing from one group to another on what group is taking something and what group it isn't. And so it's changing all of the results and making it look in favor of each poke. When you actually read the journals, the CDC, the ADA, JAMA, all the major magazines that the doctors are reading, all the journals, they're admitting that those things cause autism, that those things cause not only autoimmune diseases, but also basically time release cancer. And these are found in his videos, and he shows where the FDA and the CDC admit this stuff. But a lot of doctors don't have time to read a stack of a foot thick books and magazines and journals every week to dig through the bullshit to get to the truth, because they like to hide it behind all of their propaganda.
Mhm. Yep.
So, you know, it's mind-boggling how much money and how much time
Right.
the bad guys have put to bury the truth. I
Mm.
mean, you can see how much they put for the dewormer, how much time they put for that. And it kind of goes back to the meme where they showed Joe Rogan saying, I drink water, you know, for my health or something. And then it shows CNN saying, you know, Joe Rogan's drinking something that's known for an engine cooling.
Well, I think
So,
it's
but
also kind
that's
of
how they talk, you know?
Right.
I mean, I remember a while ago they were talking about, oh, Joe Rogan's taking this because he got sick. Now he was taking ivermectin, which was prescribed to him by a doctor, and he was like, oh, it's a wormer. He's used it. And now they're trying to cancel Tim Pool because not only is he using ivermectin, which was prescribed from a doctor, but he's also getting monoclonal antibodies, which is also prescribed to him, and he was perfectly fine afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't want to show that though. I mean,
Right.
to show that these things work, it bothers the bad guys. So I'm gonna move on to another topic. We were talking last time we had our spiritual show, Alex. We were actually talking about the point of the pineal gland. So the point of having it open, what happens when it's closed, and all of that stuff. Do you want to get your take on why the pineal gland seems to be so important, especially when you're dealing with the spiritual side of things as well as the physical side of things?
Well, from a spiritual point of view, this is where our third eye is located. And that kind of has to do with a particular, chakra, right, kind of here behind our frontal lobe. And the pineal gland, interestingly enough, you can go onto YouTube and watch lots of videos about it. There was a good episode on Gaia about it that I think is on YouTube. And then David, not David Icke, but what's the other big name, David, that's out there?
Wilcock?
David Wilcock. He did a video on the pineal gland as well. Both of those are fantastic resources. One thing that I have done in my life from David's suggestion is to take blue skate oil.
Yeah, it's skatefish oil. Yeah, skatefish oil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
skatefish
by
oil.
a company, Blue something. I'd have to look it
Blue
up.
Eyes.
But it's on Amazon. And I'm telling you, I noticed big changes once I started taking that I could feel right here, right where, in India, they put the red dot. I could literally feel tingling from it.
Oh, cool.
And he was saying that this is helping with the decalcification. So when you do like a brain scan, part of what the doctors, when they're looking at brain scans, review is, they don't phrase it this way, but they're looking for a calcified pineal gland as a marker to gauge other parts of the brain anatomy. So it's so prolific, unfortunately, that it's everywhere in terms of people having a calcified pineal gland. So what makes it calcified? Well, do some Google searches in terms of exploring why that is. Why is there a push? Why do you see, for example, fluoride being involved in the calcification of the pineal gland? Why does that matter? Why would people potentially have an agenda in terms of wanting to do that? You go back to ancient Egypt. When I was there a couple of years ago, And I swear we will go. I promise you it will happen at some point in terms of leading that trip there. It's on my bucket list. I don't
It's
know.
on mine badly.
I know. I don't know if we'll be able to make it this spring. I've had to cancel it already 3 times. And, this time I spoke with a friend recently who's a very kind of dialed in not tour guide, but travel agent. And she was saying that at this point, there's basically no countries that you can, because you can't fly directly to Egypt. You have to go somewhere else first. And she said it's all but impossible right now to fly to other countries that will get you to Egypt without having to have either the jab proof or some sort of like COVID test. Now, the COVID test, that's going to be a requirement anyway, even when you enter into Egypt. So I don't know. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. And that's all I can say about that. But my point is with that when you go there and you go to some of these museums, it's absolutely fascinating that 5, 6, 7, 13,000 years ago, these ancients that didn't have the modern technology that we have now were all referencing the pineal gland. Something that's interesting to look up is to look at the Eye of Horus and compare that from an anatomical point of view to the brain. That there are so many parallels between these common Egyptian hieroglyphic visual markers and human anatomy. So, and the pine cone is another common visual metaphor that's used. And where do you see the pine cone? All over the Vatican, all over. It's on the staff, it's on the grounds of the Vatican, it's everywhere. So this pineal gland, and then we can go down really dark roads in terms of what these sickos do in terms of like eating that. And I don't even want to go into that, but that's a delicacy, especially with, younger people. And there's even nicknames for it. It's very gross. So my point with all of this is that the pineal gland is the gateway to our spiritual evolution from a consciousness point of view. And so making a decalcified pineal gland is something that's really important for all of us, because we'll see positive implications down the road as a result of that. So they're now finding, for example, just one last offshoot, they're finding that DMT, which is a chemical that's released in the brain, is now being called the spirit molecule. And there's a lot of, rabbit hole digging that you can do on that concept. But that's absolutely fascinating. And so now there's a whole spin-off, almost like its own science, in terms of how do we further create DMT? How do we do it synthetically to some degree in terms of supplements? And, obviously people can take hallucinogens and other sorts of drugs to kind of have a DMT experience. But they're finding that even at the point of death, when someone dies, that there's a massive amount of bursting of DMT being released into the body when they make that transition. And there's a great artist, his name is Alex Gray, if I remember correctly, Grey. And he has drawn this of kind of an older body at death, and then having kind of the spirit kind of wiggle its way out through the third eye. So
it kind of makes sense, just after having several NDEs myself, feeling kind of a weird rushing feeling, and just like that opening of the third eye. I mean, it's painful coming back, but it's an amazing experience for a short amount of time. Very euphoric.
Yeah, very euphoric. Because what's happening is we're touching the other side. We've pierced the veil into past this illusion or this Maya onto something else. And that something else is going to be a euphoric, ineffable bliss, because at our core nature, that's who we are. We are, we use the word love, but love doesn't even begin to describe.
It's so amazing. It's so beautiful. And it's just,
it is.
It's just, I can try, but unless you've experienced it, it's just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
And it's interesting to kind of learn about near-death experiences, because for those who have had it statistically, and there's lots of kind of researchers out there who have looked at this and kind of validated this through, stats and whatnot. But when you look at the numbers categorically of people who have had these experiences, who are atheists, who are pessimists, who are clinically depressed and whatnot, and after these experiences, their whole life transforms because their understanding of living in this illusionary matrix, you realize that it's all fucking bullshit. All bullshit.
And I
And
used
on
to
the other
be so
side-
highly religious, and it literally, it switch went off, and I'm like, this is all man-made bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
But we
right.
have to almost play light switch with it because
Right.
we kind of still have to live here
Yeah.
in this 3D.
Exactly.
We're sort of
Well,
stuck
and
with
I
it.
think
But we
it's
can flip
definitely
the
that
switch.
compassionate thing.
Yeah, we
Going
can
back to
flip
that.
the switch and hand ourselves kind of step on the spiritual side. So it's kind of like cut in half.
Yeah.
But my next question is, because we're gonna get some, I had some arguments with that, with the term fluoride, the word fluoride. And we talked about how they used it in that particular war to dumb people down. But now then the argument said, well, what about this fluoride in water, like in rivers and streams, the natural fluoride? So would you guys, one of you guys want to talk about the difference between them and kind of, be able to smooth out the balance of the different types of fluorides? Like in rivers and streams, the natural fluoride. So would you?
Yes, we got an echo.
Well, I think
I think that's me stepping through the matrix right there.
We had a glitch.
well, let me try to take a crack at this to kind of explain things.
Okay.
So the main argument, really, when it comes to the whole fluoride in water debacle, has to do with the fact that we already have a certain amount of intake of fluoride naturally through the consumption of foods, and if we brush our teeth, and there's also going to be fluoride in that. And what most people are not aware of is that fluoride in its natural state is a neurotoxin. And that was what a lot of the times fluoride was used for in the past. It was used for its neurotoxicity effect. That's why there's the expression the fluoride stare, where a person will just look at you very blankly, and the lights on but nobody's home type of look.
The wheel's turning, the hamster's dead. Got it.
Yes, essentially.
That one.
And so the stuff that's being used right now is the artificially produced fluoride, so it's going to have a higher level of these things.
Okay.
Natural fluoride is going to be less consumed because it's not in a regular person's diet. And just in general, most people don't just go to their local stream, or they go to their local dirt pile and they pick up and, oh my gosh, now you have natural fluoride in you. That's not just how people work usually. We're worried more. Most people are more concerned about how that fluoride is going to affect a person. But it's not just the pineal gland that is the big concern, because also there is another health effect of this, which is something called fluorosis. And what fluorosis is basically the rotting of the teeth because of the overconsumption of fluoride. And this really is more common in children because they have not developed the natural defenses to all the different outside interference of different things. They haven't developed their full adult forms of anything. So naturally they're going to be damaged by fluoride or sun, or just basically anything. They haven't had their adult defenses up at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed the difference with my kids. Since they don't drink any of the tap water and they don't use any of those types of toothpaste and things like that, I've noticed that, other than my oldest one candy eating, my youngest one not so much, and so therefore you know, since she's not exposed to, I kept her away from a lot of the stuff that I grew up with. I am actually noticing a difference that she doesn't have the same problems that a lot of the kids have. But it's also, you know, some of it can be genetic of how much you can put up with as well. So, you know, it's a lot of people don't have this knowledge of that, and so that there is a difference of it. And so thank you very much, Alex, for clearing that up.
Mhm.
The
No
next
problem.
thing, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, not a problem. That's all.
Yeah. So the next thing we talked about last week was crystals. So Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, the point of people who uses crystals and things like that in their lives?
So a lot of with crystals, it's about vibration. And so we have, you know, an energetic vibration, like a fingerprint that we're giving off, both in terms of like our natural set point of where are we when we're vibing, as well as kind of throughout the day, which kind of fluctuates like a temperature gauge. And so when we surround ourselves with crystals, each crystal has a locked in frequency that is emitted from that. And part of that's based on color, part of that's based on just, you know, the rock and the gem formation, et cetera. And so they all have their own, not just frequency, but certain qualities to them. And there is a book, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's just called the Crystal Bible, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend that as like a go-to resource to start learning more about this. There's a lot that can be said about crystals. This goes back to even biblical times when you have, who was it? It was during the shattering of the walls of Jericho. And I can't remember who it was, but someone was wearing a chest plate and it had all of these different crystals in it. And there's an argument that the Ark of the Covenant was a device that had radioactive material in it, and when channeled properly, could use sound frequency that then caused these walls to break apart. And so there were only certain people who were allowed to go near or open up this Ark of the Covenant. And so there's an argument that inside was some sort of like radioactive material, and those wearing these chest plates with the gems in it protected them, almost like you'd have now of like when you, for example, like when you go to the dentist and you get some x-rays done, that you wear that kind of heavy lead padding, you know, on your chest while you do that. It's kind of like that. So all that to say that, you know, crystals have very unique and special qualities to them. There's a reason why thousands of years people have relied on them. And, you know, I can't recommend it enough. I've had crystals that I keep on my person in terms of manifesting, in terms of dealing with dark and heavy energies when I'm going through a difficult time or lots of stress, or if I'm wanting to kind of further augment and amplify an emotion or a vibe that I'm already feeling, then there's a whole separate series of crystals that you can use for that. So you can start conceptualizing it of you have a repertoire. Just think about it like when you go to Home Depot and you get a tool chest, that you'll need a hammer, scissors, a saw, a ruler, etc. But then you have, if you get like a screwdriver set, then you can get it in all different sizes and all different screw bits for your drill, et cetera, et cetera. So in that sense, you can have little nuances in terms of the different crystals, in terms of sizes, in terms of, you know, which type of, you know, crystal quality is this? I'm trying to think of one of the main ones, but it's like quartz. That's what I'm thinking of. So you've got pink quartz, you've got white quartz, you've got, you know, all these different kind of nuances with it. So, you know, that's my 2 cents on crystals. But highly recommend that as a spiritual weaponry or tool that we can use to kind of further hone in my opinion, the most important thing that matters, which is our vibration. Here we are back to that concept again, you know?
Yeah, a lot of things in this world has to do with vibration. That's actually the main key for just about everything, including healing. Alex Spielman was talking about a little bit about vibration a couple weeks ago as well. A few weeks when, do you remember talking about the power of vibration.
I don't remember exactly what I was talking about offhand, but
Well, yeah.
what I was going to say was I know when you were talking about Jericho, I think
Mm,
the person you were trying to remember was I think it was Joshua.
Joshua. I knew it started with
yeah.
a J.
It was Joshua who was
Yeah.
the he was followed under Moses.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's um
And the main thing, they don't talk about how far back crystals go,
Right.
especially like in the Bible and stuff like that. They, even ancient Egypt, they had used a lot of their crystals for things. And it's, from what I was told, and Alex, you can correct me, but there were crystals constantly in different points of hieroglyphs too. They were embedded on, different points of their walls and things like that where they wrote. Of course, thieves and so forth had vandalized and taken them off, but originally they were there to associate different things. It's
Well,
almost kind of
and
like a prescription, if you will, that was written, if you will.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, on the top of obelisks, there's an argument that the capstone of the Great Pyramid, of course, was gold plated because it has piezoelectric qualities to it, that kind of help with amplifying electricity, because Tesla kind of rediscovered what the ancients already knew about the ionosphere and being able to have electricity that was free, that was in the air, that people could use to, use it in ways that then that technology and information was lost. So obelisks were kind of placed all over as amplifier tools. And even before ancient Egypt, let's go back to like ancient Sumeria. For example, there's footage, who knows if this is real or not, but supposed footage from the tomb of Gilgamesh. And buried inside of that tomb was him along with all of these crystals. And so way back to kind of some of the origins of at least our current recorded history, that crystals were recognized way back then as well.
Yeah. So crystals do help us do all sorts of other things. One of them helps us to connect when we meditate. So do we want to go into meditation, and, what would be the point of meditation? And we can kind of get into that to end our show with a meditation session. Are you cool with that, Alex?
Always.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
You're speaking
So-
my language, Sue. Yeah. So I've used crystals to help augment my meditation. I love experimenting with this. If people who are listening to this are kind of very not necessarily against crystals, but kind of skeptical, that's fine. What I would say is, what do you have to lose? Even if it's nothing more than some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? An effect that you kind of make up, and you don't think it's based on any science. Even if that's the case, if subjectively seeing some sort of experience to it, like, what's the drawback? There's no kind of side effects from having crystals around your energy field. I would recommend, though, for those who do have crystals, to clean them regularly. I ideally like to do this once a month. In reality, I do it maybe like twice a year, but I take the majority of my crystals in my room. I have a shelf devoted to them, and I put them on a plate, and I take salt that you would if you're having like a salt bath, and I pour that salt on top of them on a plate, put a little bit of water that I sprinkle, and then I leave that plate overnight outside in ideally a full moon. And then that kind of cleans away the energies that get collected, because they're like giant magnets, and they draw out the negative energy and whatnot. But eventually that gets full, and it needs to be dumped in order to kind of reboot or refresh itself, for it to be kind of in its most highly electric and original source, for it to use its full potential. So that's in terms of cleaning. Now for meditation, again, number of different crystals. And what I'm excited is that because there's so many, that you almost have an endless cadre to call upon. kind of explore and play some wiggle room, play experimenter or scientist to see like, wow, did this augment my meditation experience? What was that like? Some of us, Sue and others, Victoria, are going to a meditation retreat here that Victoria and I are putting on in December down in Florida. And we're going to Siesta Beach. And if you look up Siesta, not only is it rated the #1 most beautiful beach in the country, but the Siesta Beach sand has very particular qualities to it. And there are crushed crystals in that sand. And the crystal itself has a piezoelectric quality to it, which means that when it's condensed and put pressure, that it can amplify an electric signal. And this is one of the arguments that Christopher Dunn and some others argue in terms of the powerhouse intention that was behind the pyramids and what their original usage was for. So again, the takeaway is that if you can experiment with crystals, whether if it's on a beach with some sand or just kind of crystals that you're holding in your hand or in your pocket, experiment to see if they can augment your own meditation experience. I know I've meditated there before and just kind of spent time there in the sand itself and had some pretty profound experiences, even though I wasn't like intending for that to happen. So I'm excited for us to go back and have some experimentation time to see how else we can kind of play around with this idea. So that's what I would say in terms of meditation and crystals. I think meditation in general, many of you might know that's kind of my background. I've been meditating almost, if not daily, for over 20 years. Most of my meditation is mindfulness meditation. When I was in grad school, I did my thesis and dissertation on the subject. I've lectured nationally, internationally on the subject, writing a book on it. I mean, the list goes on, led meditation groups, created my own meditation groups, talk about it regularly with clients. And so if you're going to have a meditation instructor, if you're interested in learning about that, my recommendation is to have someone, at least from an ideal perspective, have experience. That's the biggest thing, that you have these kind of neophyte meditation instructors that have never really meditated that much or are teaching from some sort of manual. And if you don't have experience, then it's hard to relate to clients or let alone lead a meditation in a way, if it's not reading from a script, that kind of has them enter into some sort of experience of what they're going for. But there's really kind of 3 angles to it. So experience, personal experience of like using it with others and being able to be a practitioner, and then more of a theoretical one. But if you can understand the science behind it, then you're not just kind of speaking gobbledygook to people who aren't necessarily that into meditation, but maybe would like a little bit more coaxing or motivation in terms of the rationale behind it. In terms of the different types of meditation, there's dozens, if not hundreds of different types of meditations that are out there. Mindfulness, or what's often called, one extension of this is loving kindness meditation, or metta is what's used in the Sanskrit, is one form. Mindfulness, from its Pali origins, that word means insight. And so the practice here from mindfulness, it's been cherry picked out of its Buddhist contexts and applied in like a Western format, but it's part of the Eightfold Path from Buddhism, etc. And the Buddha said that mindfulness is the vehicle in order to reach enlightenment. So it's unfortunate because over time, Buddhism has been turned into religion, when all it was, and the Buddha said very clearly himself, is just a philosophy of how I've dealt with life. And I'm not telling anybody to do this. It's just what I found. If you find something better, go for it and use it. And that's what creates such a draw, because it's such a personal experience for people that you play around with it. You see, you are kind of the one who holds the reins in your life, and you're the scientist in terms of playing out for yourself with experiments of what works, what doesn't work. Oftentimes Buddhists use the word skillful or effective in terms of like, is this creating an impact? Is this helpful for you? If so, great. If not, then throw it away and try something different. So it's very practical in that sense. There's no dogma from its origins in terms of things that you have to follow, or rigid, rituals and things along those lines. So mindfulness is something that I engage in personally regularly. That's my primary form of meditation that I adhere to. Of course, there's lots of others, and especially as it pertains to kind of spiritual evolution, as subjective as that may be, there's lots of different ways in which you can do that. The biggest thing that I would say is that mindfulness can be a stepping stone or a first step for folks who are kind of wanting to dabble and enter into the meditative world, but it certainly doesn't have to stop there by any means. You see Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now. It was a big famous book about 10, 15 years ago. And he didn't use the word mindfulness, but that's essentially what he was talking about. And it's what I love about it is it's so practical. I mean, I could talk for 3 hours about it, but it's one simple word and it describes so many things. And it's just simply becoming more aware of what already is. You're not changing anything. You're not trying to deny or ignore. It's quite the opposite. Sometimes it's phrased as opened awareness, as opposed to like concentration meditation that you'd see in like transcendental meditation or TM, where you're kind of repeating a mantra or watching a candle flame or things like that. That mindfulness is open. So you can transition from what am I hearing right now to what am I seeing right now? What am I feeling in my body? What emotions are kind of going on? And then as you recognize those things, they come and go, they fade, much like waves. And so with that, you are doing your best to kind of remain present and just observe with it all. So I'll leave it at that because there is a lot more that I could say, of course, in terms of meditation, but those are just some initial kind of intro words. So I don't even know if that answers your question, Sue, of what you were asking. But
you know, the different types of meditation styles, like some for health even. One of the things that Amaria has taught me was that you can actually take all your organs, and basically when you meditate, you sit down and you picture all your organs at a round table with you, and you kind of take a check of each one of them to see how they're doing. If you have one that you know that's not doing very well, you can sit one-on-one with that and kind of talk to it, see what it needs
yeah,
from you, or whether it's a particular vitamin, whether it's a particular amount of TLC that's needed, or whatever.
yeah,
That's one of the types of meditation. Meditation is used for all sorts of reasons. It's there to take, you know, for psychological issues like anger and whatever, worries and things like that. It can be used to take care of your inner health, your outer health. It can be used to take care of, you know, your outer social life and your inner social life. There's connecting with the higher source. So there's all kinds of reasons. All name and game. It's just literally like meditation is basically a spiritual mall. If you want to take it that, it's literally a spiritual mall. So it's there for every strokes of folks, if you will.
And that's what's so exciting about it for me is that you literally have endless potential. There's endless types of forms of meditation out there and specific meditations. If you're wanting an app, some apps that I recommend, calm.com is a good one, just kind of for broad purposes. And that's a website as well. Let's see what else is there. There's just, you know, mindfulness. If you type that in, there's lots that come up. My personal favorite is called Insight Timer. Headspace was the other one I was thinking of. But Insight Timer is cool because it's kind of like YouTube for meditation. So you can go on there and practitioners can kind of upload their own and you can just play around. And again, I've had a lot of success with clients, like finding meditations that help with sleep or stress or anxiety or, you know, endless iterations of it. But I know Amari has to leave soon. What if we were to do some sort of like quick meditation? I like that idea of maybe even the organ one. What do you guys think about doing something like that?
Yeah, I think, you know, we can do a very short meditation something that beginner level, very, very
Yeah,
beginner level,
awesome.
step off the porch.
Yep, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay,
Rock and roll.
go
So
for it.
so the first thing that we want to do when we practice meditation is you don't have to close your eyes. If you feel comfortable, you can certainly do so.
Actually, step one, hydrate.
There you go. There you go. Hydrate. Yep. We should always be doing that for sure. I know my throat is starting to get sore from just talking all day at work and then, you know, going on my diatribes that I can do very easily on the show. So getting yourself into some sort of centered and comfortable space. So, usually where I like to start is just kind of looking at neck down of like your posture, and just being purposeful. If you feel called to move your posture, you can do so. Ideally, what I like to do is I think about it like a string that is coming up from the spine, almost like you'd have in some sort of, doll or like a puppet, and wanting to have your spine be somewhat erect, but not rigid. And if you want, I prefer to have both feet flat on the floor. And I know John Kabat-Zinn, who's like one of the big names of mindfulness, always suggests that as well. And then just start by focusing on your breath. So again, if you choose to leave your eyes open or closed, it's pretty irrelevant. I personally like to close my eyes just because there's less stimulation coming in, and I can focus more on the words of the person who's leading the meditation. And so just take a moment and get in touch with your breath. And with this practice, what we're doing is we're wanting to imagine as though our concentration or the focus of our attention is like a spotlight. And we're bringing that to the in-breath and the out-breath. So imagine as though you are a guard and you're observing your mouth or your nose or both. And you're noticing the breath as it kind of enters into the passageway going into your body. And then that same guard is observing the now transformed breath as it exits our body. Just doing this for the next few breaths. And what this does is it slowly, if we keep up with it for a while, it starts to quiet the monkey in our mind. The constant chatter. Oftentimes in meditation circles, they call it doing mode versus being mode. In doing mode, we're constantly doing, having to accomplish tasks and complete things as we go throughout our day. And we get out of balance when we're not present. It doesn't mean we have to partition ourselves off and not engage in accomplishing things, but all we ever have is right here and right now. So we can even bring some presence of mind while we're in the middle of accomplishing these tasks throughout the day. That's what's so simple and yet profound at the same time with mindfulness. So now what we'll do is we'll start to introduce more of a visual component now to the meditation. And what I'd like you to do is to imagine in the screen of your mind that you're sitting at a round table. And oddly enough, you notice in each seat of that table is one of your organs. Just take a moment to observe what you notice as you look around the room. What do you see? Do you see a heart? Do you see lungs? What about your liver, gallbladder, your intestines? Even your skin. Just mindfully acknowledging each chair and then thanking each organ for being willing to play along and to show up. Now what I'd like you to do is to just notice if there is a particular organ that looks bruised or sad, has some sort of emotion to it, or a physical attribute that's kind of yearning for some attention. Maybe you can add some personification, and that these organs have perhaps arms. And if one of them might be raising its arm, wanting some attention. And even if it's not verbally chatting with you, recognize that it can communicate telepathically. What does this organ wish to express? Does it have a question? Does it have a need? Is there something it wants to say? Just take a moment and do your best to stay open. There is no wrong answer here. And when you receive some sort of message, as faint or as loud as it may be, thank the organ for expressing its communication with you. And then see if there's something that you can return. Can you offer an answer? If it needs attention, can you clarify what that means? How can you work with your organs? The vast majority of our life, if ever, do we ever stop to think about this process? We live inside this vessel, this shell, this meat suit that's beyond description in terms of its magical qualities, its intelligence, its ability to function on autopilot, and the trillions of intricacies and actions that are taken with each tick of the clock. And all of this is happening on its own accord. Meditations and encounters like what we're doing right now go beyond description in terms of their potential power. There is a whole sea of potential wisdom lying beneath the surface, or as I often say, below our neck, waiting for us to interact with it. So while we might bring this particular meditation to a close, what I would encourage you to do is to see if you could make this at least somewhat of a regular experience, especially if you didn't notice anything or had trouble with using your creative faculties to get in touch with some specifics here. Don't give up. There's a lot of potential in terms of the wisdom and information that can be shared. I know in my personal life, I've had clients and friends who have done not this particular meditation, but one similar, and the results are quite profound, including one who was able to stop a particular type of cancer from just listening to their body in meditation similar to this and taking action on it by communicating with their doctor. So as we wrap up, we're going to bring our attention back to our breath, taking 3 mindful breaths, slowly breathing in, lightly holding that breath, and then breathing it out. Doing this 2 more times. Thanking your body for sharing whatever wisdom or information it needed to express. Slowly bringing our attention now back to the room. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank
Love
you
it.
very, very much. Thank
How was
you.
that?
Yeah,
That
that
was
was
awesome.
awesome. You know, I'm gonna have to steal that again and break it up. We're gonna do another meditation coming on.
There you
Yeah,
go.
definitely.
There
I
you
love it.
go.
We'll do
See, we
another
needed
one if
this.
Dr. Bloom comes available. We actually can
Heck
do another one.
yeah.
We'll do a different type. We can
Love it.
do different, stages, kind of lesson 1, 2,
Be
and 3
great.
kind of thing,
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it.
Love it.
Thank you
You guys-
very much, Dr. Bloom. Thank you very much, Alex Spearman. Thank you very much, Amaria. Thank you, Katie, for letting us have
Yes.
this.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on again. And again, it's such an honor and a pleasure to have everybody on HeartMind Expressions. And this has been great. I'm excited to keep moving forward and keep enriching people's lives as well as our own.
Yep. Good to see y'all.
I
Me
should see everybody
too.
have an awesome